everybody situated? If you came in the front doors there and you notice there's some just blank pieces of paper, some pens, help yourself. Please do return the pens, but you are free to borrow them to take notes if you'd like. Like I said, Wilson County News is live streaming this, so you can go back and listen to it as many times as you want. So first I want to say thank you for coming. Unfortunately, we're not super happy about the situation, but we hope that you're going to get the knowledge you need to do what, you know, to properly and successfully protest your property taxes. Before we get started, I wanted to discuss a couple of things real quick. So first, thank you to Michael Berlanga, who I will introduce in a little bit, for coming to speak to us. Also, thank you to Christina Bourne and her family for allowing the use of their venue here, beautiful Isabel's Garden at Studio C. Thank you to Jason and April Hall for the use of their audio equipment and also setting it up. And then Celeste, Melody, Christina, Carson, and all our kids, including myself. Child labor, no, I'm kidding. So we had all of our kids in here helping set up the chairs. So on that note, when we're done, if you don't mind and if you're physically able, if you could help with stacking some of the chairs, the folding chairs, and we can set them up kind of along the back wall, that will make it a lot easier. Yeah, hauling them in and out of that back door out into the yard was a little bit of a chore, and then out here too, so if you can help us out a little bit. Also want to help you understand a little bit of how to get involved in changing these things going forward. I've received a lot of messages, private messages, phone calls, help me understand, how do I change this, what do I need to do going forward? So you kind of have to understand the structure, right? So we have, if you don't know, 24, I looked at the Wilson County website yesterday to confirm 24 active taxing districts or entities in Wilson County. 24. So that means there's 24 different entities that are taxing everyone's property in Wilson County. Now let me clarify that. You're not seeing all 24 on your appraisal. You look at yours, you might have 5, 6, or 7. I don't know how many you have on yours. It depends on how much area that particular district or entity covers. Okay, of those 24, they all have their own governing board. It could be a board, a commissioner, so you have like Wilson County. You've got Commissioners Court. They control our tax rate, right? You have the ISDs. They have school boards, or Board of Trustees, they call it. They adopt the tax rate for the ISDs. You have the ESDs. I call it a board, but they are called commissioners, but they have their own board that adopt their own tax rates. So aside from the appraisal values, you also have the tax rates to deal with. So how do you control the tax rates? How do you control the values? So we've got a deadline to meet. That's why we rushed to put this together, so y'all have the information before you file your protest, or you accept the amount that is on your appraisal, your estimated appraisal. So aside from that, you need to get involved in each of these boards that are in your area, each of these districts. So look at their budgets. Why, if our property values are going up, are these tax rates for these entities staying the same or even going up? They should be going down. But what are they spending their money on? You need to look at that, look at the boards, find out who sits on those boards. If you find out, oh, Jane Doe, that's my neighbor, I'm gonna go talk to her. I need to find out why our tax rate is the way it is. And maybe she has an explanation for it, maybe she doesn't. Attend the meetings, look at their budgets online. Most of them, it's required by law. They have to have their budgets available. It's open, it's public record. So you can do a request, or you can go to their website and find the information. Another question to ask some of these entities that have that are levying taxes on your property. So they are allowed by Texas tax code, and I'm not the tax specialist. This is from what I've learned through this process. I'm sure Michael could clarify it. He's the tax expert. But there are exemptions that each of these districts or entities can adopt in your area. And I know for a fact, ESD 4 and 5, because that's where I live, so this is kind of Floresville area. ESD 4 is Floresville EMS, ESD5 is Floresville Fire. We just got those 2 ESDs added in November at this last election. Voters approved it. Side note, less than 10% of our population in this county votes. That's a shame. We need to change that. Okay, going forward. So these 2 entities are at the maximum tax rate, which is 10 cents for every $100 of property valuation. None of them, or both of them, okay, how do I say it? Neither of them has adopted any exemptions for their taxpayers. So if you're over 65, if you're disabled veteran, homestead, they've not adopted any of those for just these 2 districts I'm speaking of, okay? I'm still looking at the other 22 to see what exemptions they have on their list. So that's something, again, you as a taxpayer, you need to know that. And if you fit in that category, then you need to go to those board members. Why haven't you guys adopted this exemption? I mean, I would qualify for it, and that would allow me to stay in my home. I'm not going to get taxed out of my home. And I know that's a really big concern with a lot of people. So keep that in mind. You really got to get involved in these boards that are controlling these districts or entities that are taxing you on your property. Then that's so appraisal values, right? Addressing that. Your taxing districts, addressing that. Legislatively, get connected. This is a bipartisan issue. We're not going to talk about Republican or Democrat. However, whatever party you choose to be part of, get connected with them. That's where you need to fight the battle of getting this changed legislatively. This can't go on forever. Nobody's going to be able to afford their homes if we're getting taxed like this with our property. So something needs to happen at the legislative level. We've elected officials to represent us there. What are you doing? Contact them. Reach out to your representative. What are you doing for me? This is outrageous. I can't afford to stay in my home. So you need to express your concerns to them. Otherwise, they're just going to do whatever they do. I don't even know what they do sometimes. Okay, now for the best part. So, I didn't get to finish my notes, so I'm going to go to my phone real quick. So I'd like to acknowledge a few people that are here with us. This was very last minute, again, because we have deadlines coming up. We've tried to make it the best we could. But we have Kristen Weaver with the Wilson County News is here. She's live streaming from their page. James Weaver, who revitalized the Wilson County Taxpayers group. So thank you for doing that, because we got a lot of attention here. We also have the Wilson County Appraisal District, a few members from that group here. We have Jennifer Coldway, which is the chief appraiser. She's over here. We have Ronnie Rebicek, I'm sorry. I should have practiced it. Director of Appraisal. We also have Becca Lyric, the Director of Operations. And then we also have the chairman of the Appraisal District, which is Mr. Robert Gregory. I saw him come in somewhere. There he is, okay. We also have a couple other community representatives, and I didn't check in with them yet. Okay, so moving on, Mr. Berlanga, he is our special guest speaker, and the last name, yes, it looks strange, but we are not related. Yes. But you know what, if he's popular and rich and all that, I'm related. So I just want to tell you a little bit about him and his background and why he's qualified to speak to us tonight. So Mr. Berlanga is a native San Antonian, born, raised, and educated here in San Antonio. Having attended St. Mary's University and UTSA, he holds a master's in professional accounting with his concentration in taxes. He's dual licensed as a CPA and a real estate broker in the state of Texas. His passion for over 40 years is finding solutions in real estate and taxes while representing clients in tax matters, both with the IRS and the county appraisal districts. Most recently, he has been trained and certified as a property tax arbitrator, and he brings information and strategy to empowering Texas property owners to help them protest values annually, resulting in immediate relief. As president of the Christian Chamber of San Antonio and the founder of True Tax Center, his hope is to bring relief, leading to reform, ultimately at the state legislature through educational seminars like this. So just so you know, this was completely free. There are no strings attached. He's not charging us to be here to speak to you. There's nothing. It's $0. So you walk in here with not knowing what you're doing, you're going to walk out of here with the confidence and the knowledge to be able to fight correctly and successfully. So on that note, I will ask Mr. Berlanga to come up.
Well, thank all of y'all. I really hope that I'm adequate to the applause and that it's twice as loud when I'm done. But by way of introduction, I mean, she's done an adequate job of maybe talking about, a little bit of my background. I prefer to point to some of the props I have up here because, the first thing you're going to ask us is, well, who do we thank? Well, we need to thank, again, the benefit of the use of a facility like this isn't common enough for these kinds of outreaches, these kinds of neighborhood gatherings. What we're going to do, a quick overview. Oh, by the way, just so those of you that are concerned with time, I am going to be done in 40 minutes, maybe less. And then I'm going to stay as long as I can stand or sit. That's why I brought the chair. And we'll take all the Q&A. And the slides will be available to you. So you don't have to feel like, did I miss something? Your handout is going to have my contact information, I like to say my other sister in Christ, Ann Englert. Ann, stand up, take a bow. So we represent the True Tax Center, a nonprofit that we founded because we found that there was a need for education and information, which is what we're going to share today, that will hopefully empower you. But we're going to cover tonight the schedule of how this all comes about. The proverbial deer season, but we're the deer, or at least that's how we feel, perhaps. And we're going to cover your rights. We're going to cover the process, and maybe later you'll bring me back for the politics because that's really not what this is about. Okay, well, we're going to make some references along the way. But I'm not running for office. I've had that privilege already once or twice, and that's what started this all. But again, by way of introduction, I'm not only a certified public accountant, I'm a cow parking attendant. I own a ranch. So I know if I get enough cows, I don't pay as much property taxes out there in the country with 120 acres as I do in the city with just a house. So, don't think of it as just something that only applies to those of us that are in the urban areas or those of us just in the rural areas. This is an issue for all Texans. Bless you. And on cue, I start every one of these by telling you what I have scriptural authority for being here. Because Jesus said, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's and God what is God's. And I checked my version of the Bible. Maybe you should check yours. I don't think they substituted the Wilson County Appraisal District, right? So we have scriptural authority. And I say that with all sincerity, because I'm very passionate about the subject. I mean, I was in a mosque, and I said, well, speaking of God, I said, and of course they said, oh no, what is he going to say? He's running for tax collector. And I said, well, speaking of God, I said, I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And the good news, if you'll pardon the pun, is even though you may think he's a great prophet, I said, unless your Muslim property tax is lower than my Christian property tax, I think we got the same problem. Oh, very good. We take picture. And so I appreciate that I have a message today that even transcends the message of the Great Commission, that those who believe that Jesus might be who he is, that we're going to have something we can talk to anybody about. This is not a Christian issue, it's not a Muslim issue, it's not a Jewish issue, it's not a Democrat issue, it's a Texas issue. The state of Texas has the property tax. We're the fourth worst state in the nation, and among non-income tax states. Do we have any immigrants? I'm not talking about from Mexico, I'm talking about from California. Anybody come here from somewhere else? Right, you came here and you gotta wait. Where are you from, sir? California. So you left great state of California, you left that state income tax behind, and then you got here and you found we are so big, we've got the biggest property tax burden, right? So welcome to Texas. so to speak.
Right here, New Mexico.
New Mexico. So we of the I don't know if New Mexico has an income tax, but of the non-income tax states, of which there's, I believe, 8 or 9, we are #1. That's not something I want to brag about. But it's going to take a little bit of work to get the attention of Senator Zaffarini and Representative Hempel, two different sides, to come together to represent Wilson County in the way that I think is appropriate. And I have run for office. I'm not saying this as somebody who doesn't appreciate the challenge. I've run for office with the endorsement of Governor Abbott, and unfortunately I'm from Bexar County. So you don't even claim that party this side of the Senate because you don't have a chance. But nonetheless, I had the blessing of knowing that he put his name and his face on the same card with my name and my face, and he said property taxes were a priority. So I'm holding to it because I haven't seen it. All right, I'm fair enough. I mean, yeah, I had his endorsement. He put money in my account. Go run. And I said, we haven't done anything. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here tonight. So besides scriptural authority, we've got legislative authority, though. This is the Texas Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Did y'all know we even had such a thing? No, I didn't either. I had to Google it. I said, wow, look, there's the Texas Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And look, at the 6th decision, it says we have the right to contest a decision. So if you don't feel empowered by the Spirit, be empowered by the law. And if you want judicial authority, there's this great judge. I didn't give him credit. His name is Judge Learned Hand. I cannot make this stuff up. And he says tax avoidance is not tax evasion. So hopefully you realize there's nothing I'm going to tell you that's illegal, unethical, immoral. So if you came in here with some anxiety about your authority, hopefully you at least left with saying, you know, maybe I'm going to open my mind to this possibility that I could get a little bit of relief until we collectively can get real reform and perhaps even find a more efficient way to hold our governments accountable so that we don't get taxed out of our homes. So let's talk about the schedule, because that's why we're here tonight. Right? This is like Christmas in April, you know. But the problem is that we forget that our tax valuation date starts January 1st. And this is real critical. I'm going to say this once. I really should just have a whole slide. It just says January 1st. It all revolves around January 1st. Because as a licensed real estate broker, I can tell you the real estate. Do I have any realtors in the room? Please, show of hands. Come on. Come on, raise them. Be proud. There's probably not enough inventory, right? Isn't that the problem? Right? You can't find things to sell, and it doesn't stay on the market. But you and I are talking about what we're going to sell our clients' property for in the future. We're not talking about what we could have sold it for January 1st. Any CPAs in the room? Any accountants, tax preparers? Show of hands. Don't be shy, please. I'm the one standing up here. They're not going to throw anything at you. One. If you go to her to prepare your tax return and you're telling her about the past and what you spent, and you give her deductions. So she's not thinking about what the property was worth January 1st. She's asking what you did to make it better last year. He's not thinking about what it's worth January 1st. He's thinking about what it's worth this summer. You see the problem with that? You and I don't have a continuing education course, and because I can't get San Antonio Board of Realtors to wake up to the reality that we're not educated unless we come to a seminar like this to help our clients realize that that's not, I love this. This is my prop. See, everybody recognize this is a cow. You know, the government wants to milk the cow. I got it. That's called taxes. Except you sell the cow for steak. Tonight we're going to sell the back end of the cow for hamburger, if Jenny will allow us to make our case, right? Because we're going to cut up the cow. She's looking at all the cows. I hope you don't mind. I mean, I feel like we're related. Like I know my other sister in Christ. We have same last name, but Jenny and I, we know stress. Her father and my father both died of a stroke when we were 14. So we know that what stress does to people we love. She's more stressed than anybody else in here, even though I spent some time on the phone as a courtesy. Of the 42,000 property owners in Wilson County, only 2,400 protested last year.
What?
Yes, that's what I said. What? In Bexar County, I explained that we have 80% of the Bexar County residents, property owners, don't protest. And I was bragging that we got it up to, down to 80%. That's a record low. Well, Wilson County, you blew me away. You got it down to 95%. I already told her, I said, when the Wilson County Appraisal District has its annual board meeting, I hope I'm invited. Because I hope as a result of this, and the ripple effect of loving your neighbors, you love yourself, we're going to file more protests in Wilson County than she's going to have staff for. No, we need to help her do her job. Not because she's doing a bad job, but she gets mass appraisals. Do you get a mass appraisal for your clients when you help them buy a home? No, you get a fee-based appraisal. And that appraiser that the lender hired went to that house. That is an appraisal that is specific to that property because they got into the house, they looked at everything. What do we have, Jenny? Seven appraisers?
Yes, sir.
Do the math. She didn't have the time, the inclination, or the motivation, and so she's dealing with a lot of aggregate, and they use the word mass appraisal. So January 1st is the date that distinguishes the realtors from the CPAs. I'm both. I'm somewhere in between. I'm like, don't know whether I want to talk about last year, next year. So let's talk about January 1st. If your house got out of control, if your fireworks, New Year's Eve, got out of control, and you woke up and the house had burned to the ground and the volunteer fire department didn't get there fast enough, then what is she appraising? Land and maybe a foundation. Starting to get the picture? And so we're going to talk about that. But the last day to file your protest is approximately May 15th, except I think it falls on a weekend, so we're going to call it May 17th. Last year, thanks to COVID, did you hear that? Thanks to COVID. Changed my life. Not because I got the virus. The only virus I was fighting is this property tax virus. But the last day to file your protest is May 15th. And then the hearings will start. And we only in Wilson County, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you adopt me. We only have one appraisal review board panel. And they're underpaid and they're overworked. You won't believe how much they're paid. I don't know if I should disclose this, but the risk of being transparent, it's like $100 a day. So go easy when you get there at 4:30 because you got your hearing at the end of the day because it was convenient to your schedule. These people are overworked, underpaid. I'm not talking about Jenny. I'm talking about the panel, the jury of your peers in the drive-through justice that the Texas state legislature in all its wisdom has created for these three people to administer. I just met them. I'm not here to defend them. I'm here to explain what we're up against, but what we have the right to. So that's when the appeals are going to be heard. We're going to have the right to an informal appeal if Jenny has the capacity to allow us to have a conversation off the record. She's instructed her 7 appraisers to make an offer if we make our case. And if they can settle it, they settle it. And it funnels down from 2,400, maybe if she gets rid of it. I don't know what the numbers are. It doesn't matter. But some of them don't go to the formal panel. Then she gets to the formal panel. And get this, only 2 people last year went past the formal panel. So if everybody agreed with her, then what are y'all doing here? But you're here because you didn't know there was a right to arbitrate. That's why you're here. You were told that the only alternative is to file a lawsuit. That's just not true. Not that she said that. She's got a great website. And I'm only going to show you some of it, and maybe after today, she'll invite me back and say, hey, what else do you want to add to it? Because she's just administering the process. Based on that value, the tax calculation be made, you'll get a bill from the tax collector. Don't bother Jenny, she's catching her breath come fall, right? And then we start the process over again. So you've gotten your notices of value, but and this is very, in Bexar County, I just love to pick on the appraiser, the chief appraiser, he and I go back and forth, have a lot of fun with this. His name is Michael also. Not St. Michael, clearly. But he says, he has just like you got a notice of protest, but it's on the back of what I call the not a bill, not a tax statement, do not pay notice. And it looks something like this, and I know you can't read the detail. 5 times, and I don't know, is this the same notice you sent out? Is this the standard form? 5 times, Jenny and every chief appraiser has been instructed to use this format. And 5 times the government says, don't pay anything. Just read it. Or don't read it, because you don't have to worry about it. So I don't know what you do when I get a notice that says, I got enough mail, snail mail, digital mail. If I don't have to pay it, sometimes it goes in a pile. And sometimes that's where it stays. But what you have in your hands is what's on the back. I'm using the Barrow County format, so just bear with me. But it's similar and not different enough. But we gave you a copy where it says Notice of Protest, Wilson County. Now next year, Jenny, I'm going to hold it to her. She's going to put in bright red letters, don't forget to check the box to request our evidence. Because I'm doing it for her this year. Because you have that right under state law. If you ask for it, she's going to get it. She's got nothing to hide. You don't have to go through some Freedom of Information Act request. This doesn't require the FBI to intervene.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
So we filled it in for you. Did you see that? Is there an answer?
The bottom box.
Look, can I have a... We gave them all out? Why aren't we popular today? So we filled out in section 4, please send evidence packet to me. No facts to be presented at this time. Because you don't have any obligation to negotiate against yourself. You don't know what their argument is. There's the information. In some cases, it might already be pre-printed. What's probably lacking, thanks to COVID, is our email address, which makes communicating more efficient. You're welcome to offer that. I encourage you to do it. But the 2 reasons you're going to protest, even if you think those aren't the reasons, please check those first 2 blocks in section 3 that says incorrect appraised market value. I've checked it for you. Values unequal compared with other properties. If you don't check both blocks by law, she can't allow, I keep picking on Jenny like she's going to meet all of y'all, but hopefully she doesn't have to meet any of you. The 7 appraisers are going to say to the panel, well, they only check the block for market value, or they only check the block for unequal compared to other properties. Check them both, and then you can talk about both, if you so choose. They're going to talk about both. And hopefully again, if I'm invited back to the annual board meeting, we're going to get her the resources, or maybe she can do it by Zoom. But right now, what's left is really in person as a really good alternative because she doesn't have the resources. Is that a fair statement? We can't facilitate all these people in person. I don't care what the Attorney General said. Bless him, Attorney General Paxton, for saying you have the right to do it in person. Yes, I have the right to, quote, face my accuser. I mean, we're not guilty till proven innocent. What? But my point being is that administratively, we're still respecting social distancing. We're still respecting the risk of the COVID virus. But that doesn't mean we have to disrespect our opportunity to at least be heard by telephone. And I would really ask that you look into it. And again, I'll make the case that can we get a few computers and let's see if we can offer Zoom. And I hope the Chinese are listening. I'm always talking about Christ, so they can get over it. But in section 5 on your form, because in person really isn't applicable, that's where we indicate, that's on the back of your page, by telephone conference, because I really don't want to just have you do this by written affidavit. So far, nobody looks like Cyclops. Nobody's scaring me. Y'all don't look very intimidating. You actually look friendly. And if an appraiser meets you and you meet them, maybe there's a little bit of a human quality to this presentation. And then, you know, you can tell them to email the hearing to your electronic address, sign it, and send it. So we're done. You can go. That's all we promised them, right? We're just going to I'm teasing. But go ahead, ask the question.
One other thing that people were asking questions about, exemptions. Why
Well-
they started off with maybe the homestead exemption, so why did that appear to fall off?
Well, it really didn't. You have the right, and it's in the website, and we're going to get to that. But I just wanted to make sure we got this far. If you get this far, you basically got your it's like registering for this event. You now have registered, and you're for the fanciest restaurant, and you're asking them to send you the menu. Are we good with that? If that's all you got out of this, you now when we get the evidence, which is I'm going to talk about next. Now we're going to talk about how we're going to respond. Yes, sir.
So there's no in-person appearance?
Not currently. Not unless administratively.
There will be for ARB hearings.
There will be for ARB, but not for
When
informal.
we can schedule the hearings, we will schedule them in person.
Thank you. So breaking news. We're going to brave COVID, and we're going to allow that.
You can do it
But-
on Zoom?
No, not yet. She doesn't have the resources yet. But we're hoping that she can. Okay?
So to repeat what Ginny said, the chief appraiser from CAB, she said that they will be scheduling the hearings, if you get to that point, in person.
The informal would be by telephone, not in person. Just don't have the resources to do that. But let me say something, because I've been blessed to be all over the state. Travis County doesn't even extend their taxpayers an informal hearing. You either go to the panel or you don't go. So she's already friendlier than Travis County. She doesn't have that obligation under the law to offer you an informal, hey, give us a call, let's talk through it, send us some information. Okay, so this is their official website. I went to it just so that I could kind of get assimilated. Make sure that you have applied for all the exemptions for which you may qualify. So we're not here to make an evening of talking about exemptions, but certainly inquire. They're ready to hear you out. If you think that you may qualify as a veteran, is disabled, 65 or older, that only saves a small amount unless we're disabled veterans, and maybe it's a larger amount. It only freezes some taxes, but not all. So I don't like to spend the majority of the evening dwelling on exemptions, because it only affects us minimally, and only a minimal amount of us at that. But they will answer them. No sweat off their back. That's not negotiated. Fill out the form. Claim your exemption. Correct the record. This is her website. I'm stealing her thunder. But then she goes on to say, be informed as to what other properties sold for in your area last year. Now, the red is my editing, because actually it said something a little different, but I've already made my point. Assess your own unique property fee versus mass appraisal. The red is me. I'm editing. But we're working together. Because she says, if you believe that your value is incorrect, you have the right to protest your assessment. Not just in an informal telephone conversation, but thank you in person, because you got one ARB panel, and bless you if you can get two, but it's not likely, not unless we get the fee up. Yes, sir.
On that second one.
Yes, sir.
So in your area, what area are they talking about? Because they might have one on this street, and they are appraising your value compared to something 5 or 6 miles down the road.
Did you got the money I asked you, so you cue me up, right? Because we're gonna get to that. But I'll tell you what, it's an impatient group. Let me tell you, I got out of high school with that little background on me. My father died, as I told you. I was in a seminary. I thought maybe I'd be a priest. And then I came out of the workshop, and 2 weeks later, my dad, he dies suddenly, stroke, boom, he's gone. And so I said, God, if you wanted me to be a priest, you wouldn't let me get a scholarship to Central Catholic High School. I got a scholarship to Central Catholic, and I realized, what if mom dies? So I graduated in 3 years. At the top of my class, it proved Central Catholic. That was the dumbest year we ever had. But I know how to talk fast. I'm trying to slow it down. We're going to go. Then I got out at St. Mary's University in 3 years. Then I got a master's in tax by the time I was 22. Believe it or not, if anybody can guess my age, I'm 61. Shows you mom had it going on because she lived to 99. So I'll catch up to you, okay? But the evidence that the CAT is going to, I hate to use, because it seems so impersonal, Jenny and her staff are going to send you, is going to have three main parts in the evidence that you have a right to get if you'll just request it. And it's going to describe your property in terms of measurements and characteristics, because they may have it wrong. She can only fly the drone so many times before she crashes it and doesn't realize there's a shed that was there previously that you've never told them isn't there anymore. There's an overhang over space that she assumes that roof line is your climate controlled space, but no, it's covering part of the outdoor patio. So we need to help her help us. I feel like Jerry Maguire, right? Remember? Help me help you. So that's what she's saying. Help me help you. 42,000 cases, 7 appraisers. You do the math. But the second element of information is an amount spreadsheet, and it's going to say equity values. Now, she didn't come up with the words, so she shouldn't take offense. I don't think there's anything equitable about comparing my property to 9 of my neighbors when y'all have proven that 95% of my neighbors don't protest. Right? I mean, something's wrong with that logic. But by law, she's got to provide the data. So if you and you and you and you and you and you don't bother to protest, you're not helping me because you're implying that you agree. So be neighborly. File the protest. Get the evidence. If your house is ready to go to market, then I want to get in your car and offer you trade-in. Because you don't need to, clean it up, detail it, get it ready, tune it up. Our houses are like our cars. Unless we've gotten with a real estate professional, they're not market ready. But she doesn't know that. We have to help her make that case. So when we compare our home on the third set of data to what homes are sold for in the area, to your point, what area? Am I on an open street, but you're comparing me, public street, but you're comparing me to a gated neighborhood? Am I in a neighborhood, you're comparing me to my neighbors, but I live right at the entrance. I got the greatest amount of noise pollution. I live on the fringe, on the back area of what's going to be phase 2, and I hope it happens soon because right now there's this bunch of cattle there and I'm getting the fumes. Right? You get the drift? But she doesn't have the ability 42,000 times to figure that out. We have to help her help us.
What happens if the property that's around you that was for sale and it's taking them 2 years to sell it and it's not selling?
That helps your case. Because that's one reference point for saying, look, these are the unsold properties. I mean, if you want to call, sir, what's your name? Terry. If you want to call Terry and he's up to it, he'll be glad to give you comparative market analysis, I hope, of unsold homes.
What if there's nothing comparable under that 2 years within like 50 miles?
That's why we're here. That's why we're here, because we have to help her help us realize that we're going to be at an impasse. The burden of proof is on the government. The government's doing its best to come up with comps. There are appeal rights. If you feel like you're making the case that they haven't made the case, we don't have to just stop at the panel. Fair enough? We're not done.
So what was the percentage of the people that don't protest?
95%, correct?
So the people the 95% that don't protest, obviously they're okay with their taxes. So, let me finish. So if they're okay with their taxes, then theoretically, they're okay with their taxes. So if they do go in and protest, because we're telling everybody, let's go protest. And I just want an answer. I just want to see if
Just finish the question. I'll try to do my best.
So the 92% that do go in and protest, What if their taxes go up? Then that's gonna automatically make everybody's tax go up. Is that not correct?
Well, it's not correct unless I follow your assumptions to the conclusion that the 95% that didn't protest are in agreement. My experience has been in audiences like this, and in most counties, the 95% aren't protesting because they agree. There may be a percentage. I don't have that factor. I haven't done that survey to come up with that study. And I'm not saying we're going to get all 95%. In Bexar County, after 5 years of working hard at it, we're up to 20% of protesting. We're at 5%. What if 5, 10, 15% more in Wilson County protest? And guess what? They bring the value down, as is typically the case, unless there's some gross error in the measurement. Now,
Fair enough, and that's
how am I doing? Okay? Because you made an assumption, and I'm saying that's not the assumption that's being revealed to me.
Sure.
Is that the 95% are all saying silence is not affirmation, correct? On any issue. You take somebody to church, it doesn't mean that they believe what you believe. Well, we just aren't taking them to church. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, you're saying 2,400 people, is that went before the board, or is that, I have protested my taxes since 2015 every year, but I've only been before the board 2 different times.
Well,
Because we always negotiated with the appraiser. So is that taking into account those of us that do work something out with the appraiser?
2,400 people, correct me if I'm wrong, filed the notice of protest. That means they got to that first step.
Well, I never filed that. I always called the appraiser, and then we negotiated.
Same, but she considers that in that 2,400. So you're special. You're one of the 5%. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. So we've got 2,400 special people that make interaction, and whether they come to an agreement or whether they got something, they formally speaking, pardon the expression, technically speaking, they filed a protest. You filed a protest because somehow they allowed you to engage in the conversation. Was that what we're counting in the 2,400? Okay, thank you. Does that help?
No, just
Okay.
to clarify.
I want to make sure that we're speaking, I speak 3 languages, real estate, taxes, and English. Okay? I'm the son of a Mexican immigrant. And we have any of my family here? It's Berlanga, but I don't trill the R's. My mother failed the 1st grade because she couldn't speak English. So I'm proud to say I'm the son of an immigrant. My card's green, because if you hire me, you got to pay for it. But I'm not here to sell you anything. Okay? This is all free. You know, so I'm free. If you really turn my arm and I got the time, maybe I'll charge you a fee. But I really don't have the time. I don't have any employees. I don't pay rent because I manage a building for a California investor. So this is fun. You know, if you appreciate the greatest commandment, right? Love your neighbors, you love yourself, you're all my neighbors.
If it's only her, then how are we gonna be able to even get you on the phone?
Well, she's got 7 appraisers.
Yeah, but you're looking at, God knows how many people that are just.
That's where she and the board that hired her are going to figure that out. I promise you, she's going to have a bigger budget next year. If I have anything to do with it. Okay?
Amen.
So let's talk about how we should talk to her. Whether it's the appraiser or whether it's that ARB panel. I don't even know who was on the panel. Apparently there's only 4 people so far that have signed up for that duty, that opportunity. But before we talk about what we're going to say, I want to give you something that's a good takeaway in terms of getting your message across. And that is, in the English-speaking population, there's 4 distinct social styles according to the psychologist. It's evenly divided between high feelers and low feelers, high thinkers and low thinkers. Occupationally, I would describe a high feeler as somebody who's in sales. I would describe a low feeler as a receptionist. I would describe a high thinker like a surgeon, somebody who has life and death. A low thinker is an accountant. Now, what do I mean by that? What do the accountants and the surgeons lead with? Facts. Facts, 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 right? Not very entertaining. Believe it or not, I have a degree in accounting, but I'm trying to be entertaining. But what does a salesperson? They lead with images. They lead with emotion, charisma. What does a receptionist do? Make you feel at home? Can I get you something to drink? Would you have something? Would you just sit down for a second? We'll get to the heart surgeon. I know you're dying, but just, right? But we all fall into one of these quadrants that if we only talk very muted, because I'm an accountant, and I'm socially challenged, so I'm blessed that at this age my eyesight's going, and because otherwise if I got close to you, I'd look at your shoes. And if I really felt comfortable, I might look at your belt buckle. Right? Or if I was a surgeon, just a fax man, look, I don't have time, but I'm going to take this heart and I'm going to take it out of your body and I'm going to stick another heart in, and I really don't have time to talk about it because you're going to die if I can't forget the bedside manner, right? So that's the surgeon, that's the accountant. They're fact-friendly, but they're not very amiable. Now, the amiable ones, they're not necessarily as attentive to detail. So this is the takeaway. No matter what it is you do, inform with facts. This is the visual. Entertain with images, and then by having that telephone, that human interaction, you might gain some empathy and some sympathy. But what you've achieved by doing both is that you've reached, if the panel's made up of 3 people, there's a good chance that they may not have your social style. They may be thinkers, 2 thinkers and 1 feeler. They may be, the thinkers may be tired by the end of the day, and they're just looking for some pictures. So when we put together our evidence, you're going to see this reflected. Because I'm going to give you an evidence package, a real evidence package. Somebody older than me in this room, like this room, put together last year and said, Mike, is this what you're talking about? True case study. This isn't hypothetical. So he puts together a summary, an overview. He says, look, I need some painting. I need some windows. I need some flooring. And to your point, he doesn't know, or I think there's a lady in the room, he doesn't know whether his location on next to a green belt that I call Mosquito Farm, an odd-shaped lot that isn't taking full advantage of the property, has a steep driveway that during the freeze he was the last one out of his house. I mean, you get the drift. And what do you get by asking a question? You engage the appraiser, maybe be the authority they are, but without the answer, or maybe with an answer, maybe with a sympathetic response towards something that they haven't seen before. So, back to the feelers. Look, pictures, what a concept. Show them what you're talking about. Oh, but what about how much you estimated? Well, Mr. Rodriguez said $2,900. Mr. Rodriguez is the painter. Mr. Sifuentes owns the house. Look, windows, got problems. These things were installed in 2003. Most of the homes you're comparing me to, they've already been updated or upgraded. Oh, there's another. Oh, there's some more facts. Don't forget those numbers. Oh, look at the floors. He went from ceiling to floor and everything in between. Because the government hasn't been there. You need to tell them. Don't compare me to these other homes based on the market data when I'm not ready to go to market. Can we all say, I'm not ready to go to market? We're knocking it out of the park because now you understand where we can help the appraisal district. And don't stop there, because back to your issue about location. Mr. Sifuentes, he lives next to an open lot. And I said, take a picture. Nobody's going to understand it. You're very articulate, sir. You don't look threatening, but I don't know the words you use are as good as the picture you'll show me. But look at what he's next to. In fact, thanks to the great appraisal district website, you can take a picture of where that lot is in the neighborhood and what's next to it. In this case, it's next to a green belt. And his lot is on a cul-de-sac. How are we doing? Got the phone? That's okay. I'm digitally challenged. I get excited when the email comes through the phone. So I worked for a funeral home to get through college because they needed somebody to plug into a landline. So it's okay. I'm amongst my peers. So the green belt next to the cul-de-sac actually connects to Highway 281. And if I was a thief, that's the house I want to break into. But if I don't point it out, my realtor friend, Terry's going to be emphasizing, if he goes to sell this house, that it's on a quiet cul-de-sac. Well, it's quiet. It's so quiet that the neighbors won't notice if we come in the back door and steal. And if we notice that this cul-de-sac, causes somebody to build a rectangle on a parallelogram, it seems like an inefficient use of excess land. So much so that they put the house forward, and look, the taxpayer said, danger, Will Robin said, look, Mom, no rails. I mean, I can't get out of the place. Yes, ma'am. Speak up, because I'm the one with the microphone. None. What is worth 2 years from now has nothing to do. That's like asking me if I fail my 8th grade class now, am I going to be a failure 2 years from now? We're talking about 2 different periods of time. Back to the effective date. The housing market could change. You could make the repairs that you're pointing out you didn't make. Now, in this case, to continue the example, he even points out, look, you're comparing me to homes that don't have the steep driveway. These people got out of the freeze after a couple of days. They didn't use my driveway like a ski slope. And then he went outside to further finish the conversation. He said, look at my fence, it's falling apart. Look at my flat work, it's also in need of repair. Does this help understand that this wasn't a Rubik's Cube? It actually there's a method to this madness. These are very amiable people, and the panel might be amiable. But if all we're doing is data upon data, we're not going to make the progress if we don't give them images and facts. Facts that they have not had a chance to consider. Because you're going to go in front of a citizen board called an Appraisal Review Board, and in the drive-through justice that the state of Texas allows us to administer at the county level, we're going to be in and out of there in 15 minutes. And that's a formal hearing that's on the record, it's recorded. To your point, ma'am, it'll be recorded. We're talking about January 1st of 2021. So you have already fixed what you're saying you want a reduction for today. So keep your peace. It's not a tagline at a Catholic Mass, right? Peace I bring you, peace I give you. No, that's not. Keep your peace. Why? Because any golfers in the room? I dressed like one today. What did Bob Rotella, you probably don't, you're too young. Bob Rotella was the greatest golf psychologist of all time. He said, don't become attached to the outcome. Don't get on the first tee and say, I'm going to shoot the course record or my personal best. Commit to one shot at a time. So commit to the process, and guess what? You might go lower. With God, all things are possible. Right now, nobody thinks it's even probable, but look, we got this many people in the room. Jenny's starting to calm down a little bit. That was my goal. So do not become attached to the outcome before the rulings. Commit to the process of presenting and appealing. Have the telephone conference. Send them the information. Tell them, if you love me like you love your brother, first ask them if you love your brother. If you love me like you love your brother, what else could I have given you? And guess what? They'll probably tell you. Because 95% of the people aren't even bothering to talk to them. They're lonely. They want to meet everybody in Wilson County. I mean, only 5%. They want to love you, but you got to love them first and ask them, and then they'll tell you, could you bring me a little bit more? Don't bring me your complaints, bring me your information, bring me your evidence.
So if you send in your protest, do you send in your pictures with it?
Ideally, I mean, I'm non-digital because I'm so old, but I have a smarter phone, not the smartphone, and it allows me to take a picture, and apparently there's this thing that allows me to then drop it in an email. Well, then maybe engage an 8-year-old and we'll overcome that. We're in it together, so I'm 61, so you don't have anything on me. But if you would, yes, take images, put it in the email, and send it so that they can see it as you talk about it. And I'm not talking about 5 minutes before the hearing. All right, let's be fair. Let's get it to them on, what is it? What do you want, 48 hours before, give or take?
Before the hearing?
Yes, or before any meeting. Just get them the information.
A few days would be good.
Ideally.
In the system, if they're not going to email it, they're going to put it in the Dropbox or bring it with them. If we can scan it in our our ARB hearings, we have a big screen, we'll put it up on there, so they don't have to print copies for everybody, it's up there on the big screen, everybody can see it together.
Awesome. So she's helping us. She's here to help us. 48 hours at the minimum.
Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
can you say what she just told you?
She was saying, well, come up to the mic. Oh, you don't want to come up to the mic. She's saying that she will get the information. She will put it out there. If you'll just get it to her in advance, I'm putting a little pressure on her. 48 hours, maybe she give her 72 hours. I mean, she's not scheduling the hearing like the next day. She's giving you, what's usually advance time when you give?
15 days prior.
15 days. So you got plenty of time to allow 3 days. I'm going to go by her and get her 3 days now. In Bear County, they say 2 days because they got all this huge staff. But but get it to her, and she'll have it so that everybody can see what it is that you're going through. I mean, we just went through an example. A 63-year-old man could do that. Ma'am, you've got my email address. We're going to figure it out together. We're accountants. We're supposed to be a problem solvers. Yes.
I requested my evidence prior
Yes.
to filing their protest. I contacted the Wilson County Appraisal District. They said they will not provide me the evidence until I actually file the protest.
Well, I think that's reasonable. File the protest, and they'll give you the evidence.
And it's on the form.
Ma'am?
I just have two questions, actually. One having to do with the evidence. What if we're using another company to protest for us?
I would.
Can I still request the evidence be sent to me as well?
I'm glad you asked that question. Another $5 out of my pocket, Ian, because she's on cue. You're going to get solicited, except tonight, to have other people represent you. And on that appointment of agent form, there's a blank, and it says, when does this registration end? Please, end it at the end of each year and make them renew it each year, because if not, you hire that company from Dallas or San Antonio or Houston. They'll go in front of her this year, in front of her, I'm using her 7 appraisers, with just market data, because you didn't get them the evidence that they didn't ask for. They'll send you, they'll say they got 10,000 knocked off, they saved you 250, they charge you 25%, and then next year, they're going to tell you what they did before you even knew that they were still representing you. So at the very least, make them call you to find out that your house did or didn't burn down, like I gave you the example.
But can I still get that evidence?
Yes.
In conjunction?
Yes, but the agent may be requesting it, but unfortunately, I wouldn't count on the agent to request it. Now, she may have a little bit of a logistical, nightmare, but I would definitely insist, if you had hired me and you said, Mike, I want to see that evidence, then if they've sent it to me, then I should give it to you. Otherwise, you shouldn't be working with that company. How's that?
I have another question in regards to all of us who are here tonight for the same reason. Our property values were raised in insane amount at one time via the mass appraisal. What recourse do we have as opposed to just doing an individual appraisal to go up above Wilson County Appraisal District to the state and say, have them look at this and say, why, what they did was just way out of whack with what should be.
Well, that's another conversation if we're going to talk politics, but if we're going to talk process, we do have on a case-by-case basis, we can go beyond what the ARB panel ruled. If you think they're drinking the same Big Red, the same barbacoa that the staff is, and somehow that's corrupting their prejudice, guess what? You have the right to arbitrate. And we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Because she only got 2 of them. And I promised her after today, she's going to get more requests for arbitration. Okay? So do be polite, do be pleasant. Now, she and I may not appreciate remember, I'm here on behalf of the citizens, but I'm working with the government. When I say you don't need to go first, let the appraiser put on the evidence that they've already sent you. Let them put it on in front of the panel. You already know what they're going to say, but let them go first. Don't attack the appraiser. You're impeaching the facts. You're making an argument. You're not making a character assault. That doesn't go well in front of any panel. The panel doesn't work for the chief appraiser. But I don't generally tell you to accept the appraiser's offer if you don't feel like you made your case and you just don't feel like you got what you wanted. But it's not so much because I think that the appraiser didn't make their case. It's because if you don't feel good about it, and you don't let the panel rule, even if the panel agrees with the appraiser, then you don't have the right to arbitrate. You don't have the right to go outside of the county. You're done. That's where she and I mean, she's trying to close cases. I'm trying to get to what makes you comfortable. Sometimes we're not going to agree, but that's okay. That's what makes us such a great country. We don't have to agree. We just have to disagree respectfully and know that we can go on and present our case one more time. So in Mr. Sifuentes, he went in and he had a 320 notice of value. His offer at the formal in front of the panel was 300. And they were on Zoom. And I'm behind the camera, and I'm going, no, don't do it. Don't. He looks at his wife and says, no, I'll let the panel rule. So the panel ruled. And I don't know, they either liked Mr. Sifuentes, they felt sorry for him. I don't know, but they said 290. Now, he didn't like that either, but you know what? That's it. It's over. They've ruled. You'll never see that panel again, at least in Bear County. But because he allowed the panel to rule, a few days later he gets certified mail, and the clock started because he then had 60 days to decide if he wanted to request arbitration. Only 2 people out of 42,000 taxpayers last year requested arbitration. We're going to talk about that. Because he still thinks he could get to 250. He was having so much fun. And we're going to find out May 7th of 2021. This is last year. Now, why? Well, look at his values. He was at 302 before he came to the seminar. Then it went to 307, then 310. He came to the seminar. He's sitting at 290. I feel like I'm in Vegas. He's rolling the dice one more time, and we're not even done. But before they're done, this is Bear County. This is Jenny's handiwork. They've already increased his value to 361. And the panel's already ruled from the year before 290, and we're trying to bring this down, and we're going to start this whole process over again. Yeah, you're saying, well, wait a minute, he's at 361, that's the appraised value. What's this assessed value? Well, assuming that he doesn't get any more adjustment, under current state law, that 290 for tax purposes, because it's his residence, can only go up 10%. It can only go up to 319. So even if he locks 361 down to 319, it doesn't save any taxes because his homestead cap on that growth. So should he go protest 361? Yeah, I think so. Will he be satisfied if he doesn't get a tax savings? Perhaps not. But how it went from 290 to 360, they must be assuming that he made all those repairs. So what is he going to have to do? He's going to have to print the same package again if he hasn't made the repairs. Update the repairs. Maybe it's worse because he had hailstorm. Maybe it's worse because of the freeze. I don't know. Every year stands on its own. You know, with the IRS, you have a statute of limitations. The government can audit you for 3 years. In like manner, we can go back and amend our returns for 3 years. That's not how it works with the county. One and done. Every year stands on its own. Jenny's not going to come back and say, you know, I messed up 2 years ago, and I'm out to get you. She doesn't work that way. Even if she did work that way, she doesn't have the authority to work that way. This is Bear County, so I'm in the friendlier, cleaner air of Wilson County. I know you don't think so. Come down to my chili bowl. Trust me, you're glad to be in Wilson County. So this is how we're, Mr. True case study. This is real. So I'm going to manage some of the myths that I find in Bear County. This is my first visit. Well, in this manner, I've been here about elections. We know about how to hold elections on time. Okay, I was wondering if you're catching up that. I struggle in Bear County specifically, and maybe this is becoming a trend here. Land has sometimes cannot be calculated separately from overall value. I know they did. That's why I bring it up. But that's because that's what she's been charged to do based on mass appraisal, is to suggest that the land went up in value. But maybe we need to help point out that we can't find evidence of a lot vacant that compares to our lot that's built on to justify the allocation. So I feel your frustration. But again, she's dealing with 42,000 properties. She's being prompted to put a value on, because people are coming out here, we're doing developments. I would suggest this, she and I disagree. But my brother's in the development business, buys big tracts, makes neighborhoods, puts in roads, utilities. 20 to 25% at most is a reasonable value for the land in proportion to a house in a typical built-out neighborhood. Because that's the price by which a developer will deliver a finished lot expecting to build a home at 4 to 5 times the value. Unless you're in inner city San Antonio, where the location of land is so primo to the San Antonio River that you're better off tearing the house down. And I know the government hasn't caught up to me on this. And I'm not picking on Wilson County. Bexar County is really crazy, the land allocation. But it's based on mass appraisal. Nobody's been to your lot. Yes, sir. Okay.
In our neighborhood, well, our little cul-de-sac, like everybody's went up except for one person. He didn't get the huge spike. Why? How does that work?
Well, actually, it would help because, well, your value is unequal to his property. But you've got to bring that evidence forward. Fair enough? That's why we're going to protest both market value and maybe unequal. Yes?
How do we get a list of the homes that sold in our area?
Well, I've got a realtor friend right here. I'm sure you get saluted.
Never heard from her.
Yeah.
It needs to come from a realtor.
No, it doesn't have to come, but usually they're knocking on your door to sell your home, to make them work a little harder, to get you some data.
Well, I reached out to one real estate lady, and she never.
Terry, can you get her? No, you don't want to help her. Okay. Well then, you send that request. We'll find. I'm teasing.
So on that, with real estate help, if you go to the Wilson County Taxpayers page or group, several realtors have chimed in and offered their assistance. So go to that group on Facebook and Wilson County Taxpayers Association.
I did, that's where I got her name.
So go look for another one. Fred Onisarge, he's on there. He's offered to do comps. So just look at who has chimed in. You can search within a group. So go to the little search bar and say, realtor or comparables or some kind of keyword and see what, maybe that would be a good thing, James, to do, to put a list together of realtors in that group that are willing to assist.
We're working on it. Chris Jacobs is another one that's been real helpful.
Chris Jacobs also offered to help. So just watch that.
Can you bring in your own appraiser to appraise it?
You can bring them in if you're up to paying the fee, if it justifies the possible savings. You're not precluded from having an attorney, a CPA, a real estate appraiser, but you don't have to.
Right, but I mean, they can give you
Yes.
the 15 or 20 homes that are your size.
Yeah, if you're up for the cost, if investing in that helps, yes, you can.
What house, if my taxes went from 700 to 15,000, you say your house on here?
That's exactly, it's a cost-benefit decision. I'm going to take a question, I'm going to keep moving, but I'm going to stay around. Go ahead. Because I may be answering the question with more of the presentation, but go ahead.
This is to piggyback on the lady's question, sort of back there.
Yes.
This is dialogue I had last year via email with the tax assessor. So I protested.
The tax assessor or the appraiser?
The appraiser.
Thank you. Okay.
So I protested 2 years in a row, and last year was the second year, and I got the comps because I requested, hey, you can get that, get that from me. And what I noticed when I did everything is I wrote back, said, why is our property value going up when 7 of 7 properties of the 2019 comps are not? Why is our property value going up when 4 of the 5 properties of the 2020 properties comps are not? And she wrote back the reason why value changed is because last year you came in to protest your value, as all those comps property owners did not. The value of those properties were not adjusted last year like yours was. Your property was,
there it is, right there.
Your property was on a flat value last year, and it came off this year, which is why your value took an increase. So then I followed up, I said, can you provide me the reference that outlines this flat rate that you mentioned? And
I'm waiting for a question.
There was no reference. And so what is this flat rate that is being referenced, and where is it referenced in tax code, whatever the case is?
I can't speak to that specifically because that's not a common response. The fact that you even got a communication, but within the formality of the process of protesting, if you ask that same question of the appraiser in front of a panel, and you didn't get a satisfactory result in your ruling, then we have the right to appeal. It doesn't stop here. If I can keep going, and then, but I appreciate the frustration, but I think it's a matter of sharing information and not engaging in the process. Further beyond, you don't agree. Whatever the logic it was put forth, you didn't agree. We agreed that we didn't agree, but we're not done. 2 out of 2,400 out of 42,000 said, okay, I give up. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And I'm saying don't give up yet, because we're not done. Do we have any business owners? Yeah? Okay. So here's a common myth, that like kind is like use. Is this structure, if it's not compared to another event center, being fairly compared? If you pay taxes as a tenant running a Subway sandwich shop for the landlord, did you know that under the property tax code, you basically are the owner, you have the right to protest it. So if your landlord's not protesting, maybe you need to give me a call or engage me in an email and say, hey, landlord of the retail neighborhood slammer, protest the value. Don't use my blank check because of the triple net lease to pay as much taxes as possible. Taxable value doesn't always indicate market value. You saw Mr. Sifuentes. They say his market value is up, the taxable value hasn't gone up because of the limits from exemptions. So let's go through it step by step. We're not done, but let's catch up to where we've gone. We filed the protest. We requested the evidence package. We had a telephone informal hearing. We followed up to the informal because we asked, if you love me, tell me what else I can do to help you get to where we're both happy. And then maybe they'll give you some advice, and maybe they won't. But if they don't, you can go to the formal hearing. The hearing we refer to as the ARB panel. The one and only panel in Wilson County that's willing to work for $100 a day. And on a good day, they may get $150 a day. We're trying to get it up.
I have a question on that first slide. So you file your protest, request evidence package. So when you file your protest, you provide your evidence.
No.
In return, you're asking.
I have to stop you there because I said specifically, you don't have to. She offered you the opportunity to fill in the blank. The form you have in front of you says, not at this time. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Right? Do you have the form in front of you? What does it say?
Yeah, and I made a note evidence requested earlier.
Yeah, but it doesn't say, and here's my evidence. Okay. So let's let them make their case.
But it says, please send evidence package to me. So you're requesting their evidence of why your property value is.
Right. Because when you get their evidence, let's not get ahead. Let's get their evidence, and then let's see where their logic is before we start just presenting our evidence.
Let them go first.
Let them go first. And then, after you don't get satisfaction at the one ARB panel, assuming you don't, which obviously everybody's getting satisfaction, otherwise we wouldn't have just 2 arbitrations. Now don't shoot the messenger, because I'm the one telling you that you're not doing it. You have a right to arbitrate. This is the picture of myself and the chief appraiser. After the formal hearing, but before the, I could say, lawsuit arbitration that we filed on behalf of Mr. Garcia, he's not happy. You see that? He said, take a picture. It'll last longer. Mr. Ernesquita says, Mike, what are you doing here? I said, I don't know, what do you think? I got lost? I mean, I'm here because Mr. Garcia said, can you help me? Now, he owns a manufacturing facility. He didn't go to the hearing. This is Jenny, not as handsome, but this is the Jenny in Bear County. So he didn't get his satisfaction, even though I said, you said Mr. Garcia's plant is worth $3.6 million. I said, no, I think it's worth $1.2 million. And the appraiser almost had a stroke. I said, no. The panel said, well, how about 3.3? I said, how about you've ruled, and it's been a nice playing the game. I'll see you. We'll talk about this. We walked out of the panel. We saw Mr. Amosquita. We said hi. He's not relevant. The panel ruled. If you come out of a panel hearing and Jenny's standing there, don't waste your time talking to her. She has no authority at that point to tell you that she can change the panel's mind. The panel has ruled. Just like you come out of the courthouse and the jury's deliberated and they said, you really looked like you were driving while intoxicated. They said, no, I always drive like that. I didn't need the alcohol. and so that's why he and I are smiling. But you know what was really funny after we filed the lawsuit, or if we had filed for arbitration, before we ever got to a courthouse, we came to an agreement. And it was actually, in that case, about $2 million less than what we started at. Because we perpetuated the right to appeal, and an independent person that wasn't eating the same barbacoa and drinking the same Big Red, pardon my bias, you know, it's just my flavor, you know, some independent person said, you know what, we're going to give you a little bit more of an adjustment. A little bit. That's a pretty big significance. And the person who offered it on behalf of the big bad appraisal district, we call them the bad appraisal district, Bear appraisal district, the big bad appraisal district, that person disagreed with their own appraiser. But that person, it's a big staff, had the authority to come to an agreement. And the appraiser, because this gentleman's such a genius, and I say that lovingly and respectfully, he's got a master's in economics. He wanted to make sure all the details are right, all the measurements were right. So they said, well, do you want to talk about settling the deal, or do you want to go talk to the appraiser again? So the appraiser made some adjustments. The appraiser said, well, I think it's 2.3 million. I said, this guy's offering us 1.6. He says, well, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I said, well, I like him better than I like you. True story. So you don't like what the appraiser offered. You didn't appreciate the ruling. You felt like you were being retaliated against. You felt like you were getting jerked around. I feel your pain. I'm not here for any other pleasure, you know. But you have the right to file within 60 days of that ruling. They're going to send it to you, I believe, by certified mail. Or is that a law thing, right? So they're going to say, this is what the panel said. A jury of your peers, here's the ruling. You get it in the mail. If you got that in the mail, then the clock starts. I got 60 days. In 60 days, they might find a cure for COVID. I don't know. But, you know, take the mask off, take a breath, get a bottle of your favorite drink, and on the 30th day, if you need some help, I'll help you make a cost-benefit decision. Because you can sign a request with a cashier's check to indicate that you think the value should have been X. You can even go find more evidence. They're stuck with the evidence that they gave you in the first place. How do you like those apples? Granny Smith. You know, you could continue to build on your case. You didn't engage Mr. Realtor. You went in there complaining, and now you have a chance to say, wait a minute, hold on, I forgot to ask you what I should have asked you. Can you give me a schedule of unsold homes or an unsold property? If the house is under, or the property is under $450,000 at your residence, the fee, the deposit is $450. You send a cashier's check with your request to the county. They forward it to the comptroller. Comptroller gets that $450, and after a period of time, it's a lengthy period of time, because there's only 200 arbitrators in the entire state of Texas, because they actually have to do more than fog a mirror. There once was a time when to be an arbitrator, all you do is fog a mirror. And there was 1,600. It was like the Wild West of independent judges. I call them administrative hearing judges. Then they raised the standard, and now there's only 200. Good for us that we have somebody that's more informed. Bad for the process, because it means more arbitrations take longer to get a scheduled hearing. But I don't mind waiting for that arbitration. If your property's more than $500,000 and it's your residence, it's $500. But let me tell you a little bit about this arbitration fee that is not commonly understood. Back to Mr. Sifuentes. He got $290 at the ruling. He wasn't happy. He was like you. Actually, I don't know if he wasn't happy. He just kind of felt like he was on a roll. He was in Vegas or something. And he says, Well, I said, well, mister, what do you want? He says, well, how about 250? I said, how about it? If you get 269,999, like a tug of war, if you pull them more than halfway in your direction, guess what? By law, that's deemed you won. You may not feel like you won because you thought you should get 250. You won. Now, if you get $270,001, you lost, but you still won because you lowered your value 20 grand. But what's critical about that midpoint from 290 to 250, the midpoint of 270, is that if the county loses in the face of that independent arbitrator, the county pays that fee. She and I are going to get real practiced if I can get enough people to arbitrate. Because now she's going to have to make some calls. Like, if my ARB panel was just getting tired, they didn't feel like the presentation of the taxpayer was very amiable, they felt like we were attacking the appraiser, they felt like, I don't know, you just didn't have enough pictures to entertain me, and it's 4:30 and I only got $100 today. Maybe we're going to get a little bit more relief from arbitration. Maybe you didn't drive while intoxicated. Maybe you didn't drive recklessly. Maybe you didn't even drive the car, and you're saying, what am I getting a speeding ticket for? If the Texas Department of Transportation worked the way the state of Texas allows us through our counties to administer, we'd all be getting DWI tickets and then have to work backwards to prove I didn't drive recklessly, I don't drink, I don't even remember getting in a car that day. You see, there's a difference, and that's what we're here to help you be empowered to do, is recognize you've got this opportunity to get outside the county. You literally can indicate, there's not a single arbitrator in the county anyway, to be biased on behalf of Wilson. There's not one. But if you're in Bexar County, where we do have a few, you can request that if you felt like maybe there's some wealth discrimination going on, you know, maybe, and I disclosed, I'm of Hispanic descent. I know you can't believe this because it's fair skin, but this is the reality, son of an immigrant. So Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Sifuentes, Mr. Rodriguez are listening to some poor taxpayer in the Dominion that they couldn't use their $100,000 pool because they needed to prepare. And they're whispering to themselves, I've swam in some Pedro Creek, first world problems. And you just felt like I didn't get the adjustment I should get. Real cases. And I took it to arbitration, and I got resolution. At that point, somebody in, I keep saying Jenny's office, is going to say, wow, we don't have 2 cases for arbitration. We got 50. We got 100. Wait a minute. The panel was smoking something that's not legal, at least yet. And you know what? I don't want to risk losing $400 per case. I don't want to risk losing some money to an arbitrator who might see it differently, because now you've got a pretty good case going. You've learned. And she might then say, through that person she appoints to oversee the arbitrations, of which there was only 2. 2 out of 42,000, out of 2,400. 2.
All you're talking about is homesteads. What if you have just land?
Non-residence homestead, $500. Non-residence homestead that's worth more than $1 million, $800. Non-residence homesteads that are worth more than $2 million, $1,050.
Sorry, I didn't read.
That's okay. No. If you didn't read it, then half the audience did. So it's not just homes, it's non-residences. The arbitration process applies across the board. It's in lieu of litigation, so you don't have to go find a lawyer and ask them, beg them to take $2,500 to file a lawsuit. You're welcome to do that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not selling legal services. Not selling arbitration services. I'm introducing you to the information. So you have this right. And that kind of brings me to normally questions and answers, but I think we got a few more questions still to go. Yes, ma'am.
Can you stand up when you ask your question so everyone can hear? I protested my taxes last year. The easy thing was with my new home. I won basically. But this year I'm looking at just the land. The land value. I'm okay with what the house is. So are my comps just the land that's sold?
Unless Jenny has a database that's different than what I'm struggling with in Bexar County. I'm picking on Bexar County. This is not a direct criticism of the circumstances in Wilson County. She's challenged, in Bexar County, we're challenged to find the justification for sometimes that allocation. And you need to help her make that aware. We all need to help the appraiser just realize, y'all made this mass adjustment, and maybe she's got evidence for the allocation. This is not the forum for us to argue all land value, but I do appreciate it. I bought 5 acres at the entrance of the Oak Hills Country Club with a house for $800,000. I put $200,000 in the house. I carved the house out. I was left with 3.5 acres. I then sold 7 residential lots at $100,000 apiece. Nobody bought any of those lots at $100,000. Didn't build a $500,000 home. Does that make sense? I mean, so if your land has gone up more than 20 to 25% of your overall value, and you're telling me, well, I'm okay with the house, well, but we're taxed on the composite value. You can't separate the cake from the icing. So you like the taste of the icing, but you don't like the cake. Well, I'm here to say she needs some help. We need to help her, and we may have to take this to arbitration to say, I just don't see where you can tell me I've got a $300,000 home with a $90,000 or $100,000 piece of land underneath it. Unless there was a neighbor whose house burned to the ground, was destroyed by a tornado, and that lot was sold at, and it has the same qualities and characteristics as your land. Now, she and I can disagree, possibly, but 42,000 values she put out there. She's never represented to me she's perfect. Perfection is not her goal. Excellence might be tolerated, and that's what we're trying to get her. We're trying to help her achieve some excellence. If we do this collectively, maybe we'll bring down the land values, but I need you to protest. Fair enough?
Yes, I filed my protest. I'm just wondering, like my realtor sent me comps for land comparable.
Good.
But not, I didn't do homes.
Then that's why you have a hearing. Yes, ma'am. If it helps your case, if you can find lots that have sold that help your case, there was 10 homes have been built, there's still 5 vacant lots, and one of the vacant lots sold for less than what they've allocated, that's going to help your case. I'm having trouble hearing you. Speak. My comment about real estate agents is that we don't see courses on how to help.
The question was, do the realtors charge to get comparables, right? And the answer was no, it's free.
Well, let me speak on behalf of realtors. I mean, this gentleman right here, I'm gonna. If he isn't a real estate professional by the end of today, he is. You know why? Because he's going to be the one person that's going to probably say, you know what, maybe I should offer some advice, not just when I'm selling and buying on behalf of my client. Right? That's a professional versus a transaction coordinator. Can we kind of just keep the murmuring to a minimum so we can get through a few questions, and then we can just stand in line and I'll take it one at a time.
They might have to give them a mic.
About some multipliers.
Can you stand up, please?
Can we take over a mic? I don't know if these things will drag out.
They have cords. They're not cordless.
Go ahead.
I have my question is regarding the multiplier on a subdivision. And the only place you see that is on the appraisal part. So the subdivision I'm at now, since we've been there since 2015, is gone up from 140% up to 165% of the value of their home that they use. So they have a value on your appraisal card of X, and then they multiply it by that multiplier, which is 165%, to put up as the improvement value. Where do y'all come up with the information? How do we get something comparable to know that y'all are saying that my subdivision is one of the top selling subdivisions in Wilson County? How do I do anything to find that multiplier? Because they brag about not increasing property taxes, but nobody talks about the multiplier of the value of your home, which is actually a way of increasing your property taxes on your home.
So let me speak to that, because it's in the website that you can get. Yes, your taxes are a product of two factors: the rate of the taxing jurisdictions and the value. They don't brag, if I may take issue with that word. Now the elected officials for some of the taxing jurisdictions may brag that they didn't raise your rate. I hear your pain. In fact, some of them in Bear County will say, well, we lowered the rate 0.1%. And I followed them to the podium and I said, yeah, they lowered your rate 0.1% because they're counting on the values to go up. I feel your pain. But that said, request the evidence. What is it? And then let's argue.
I mean, all I got was I did, and all I get is comps for that subdivision. My question is, how do they come up with the fact that the subdivision I'm in should be taxed at 165% on the value?
Based on their interpretation in a mass appraisal of the comparable sales that they've located. That I spent the better part of this saying, that doesn't mean that your appraisal on your specific property is justified. I hear your pain, but we got to come back and make our case. We have the right to make our case. We have the right to be heard, not once, not twice, but maybe 3 times.
Well, I know homes in other subdivisions are still at higher that are
Other subdivisions, again.
Yeah, and they're at lower multiplier rates.
Again, and we're getting caught up in the detail of the multiplier when ultimately is our home comparable to the homes that they're being used as comparable. That we just got finished saying could possibly aren't. Different neighborhoods. Yes, sir.
Real quick question I have is in block 5 here in Titan, you have 1, 2, and 3 as an example. Is this a multiple choice to?
No, I was just showing my editorial preference. That was just my preference. That was my recommendation based on my preference.
I would like in person, but would accept by telephone, is that, we check both?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jim. Yes.
I would like in person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
On a tax law,
Can we keep it down so that people can ask their questions and get them answered, please?
on a tax law, you're supposed to use comps from a year where the buyer and the seller under normal conditions don't be under pressure to sell. Right?
Fair market value.
That's the law. All right, this past year since July, the used market housing has escalated because of material prices. So people are selling their homes, the used homes, at higher rates that they normally wouldn't sell. I had a customer yesterday, I went and looked at their house. The house is not for sale, but they're considering selling it because they had an offer. Under normal conditions, they wouldn't sell this house. So we usually be using this past year's comps? Is that both comps we should be using?
January 1st.
January 1st.
January
That's
1st.
Last year, July, this has been happening.
I understand.
Know this. Materials still haven't gone up.
I
They're still
understand.
going up. They may come down. We don't know. When the materials come down, so is the housing, the used housing market.
And
It's going to be cheaper to build again. They end up fixing the old house up.
every year stands on its own.
So
Were you around in 2008 when the values came down? And in like manner, if she had been the appraiser, we should have just overwhelmed her to bring all our values
a
down.
lot of the properties that are selling now, or some people are selling them because of the way the market is. They wouldn't normally be selling this.
I understand.
Under that law, should we be using this year's comps?
No, we shouldn't be
Or
using.
this last year's comps?
The question is, should we be using 2021's comps?
2020 comps. 2020 says.
2020.
July or so, 2020.
2020 comps is all that's available to argue 2020 year-end values. But your case, each property is going to stand on its own.
But under the law, we're supposed to be doing it, if it's not a normal market for the buyer and the seller, it says that that's not what we go by. We go by for the normal market. It's not a normal market.
I'm not aware of any reference to the normal market.
Well, prices on used houses have jumped. On used homes since
What
July.
what could you have sold it for on January 1st?
January this year.
Right, that's the question you have to
The
answer.
next question I have is when will the lobbies be opening back up? All of our county offices are open, the clerk's office are open, the courthouse is open, the sheriff's department. tax assessor's offices, everybody's open.
Yeah. So our lobby is not set up to social distance safely, and with the board and the, speaking with the comptroller's office, and we talked to other counties, Bear County, Atascosa County, we're not able to social distance, so in our opinion, would you rather us be there answering phones and emailing back? Or if someone comes in with COVID or someone in our staff gets it, we're closed for 2 weeks and we can't do anything.
Last year was open on a limited basis, and
Just
y'all
last year.
had glass up.
Last year was open when we had in-person hearings, when we were able to schedule everybody to come in the office
On a limited
at a certain
basis.
time, which is what we'll be doing.
Y'all had
this
the
year.
glass up in there, and when I was in the meeting in there, y'all had glass panels up, and everybody was fine. That's the same thing they're doing in the tax assessor's office. Hundreds of people in and out there every day.
But she can buzz them in individually when they're ready for someone to come in. We don't have that.
I can tell you, not to get in the middle of this entirely, but in Bear County, where we've got a much bigger building, much more space, Mike and Mosquito, that friendly man I showed you, they're not open.
But at the same time, they're sitting here, and there's half the people.
I appreciate that, so hopefully she'll be also affirmed in the risk that she's taking, not only on behalf of those three, but on the rest of the staff.
If I can make a suggestion, so if that is kind of a consensus, or not even a consensus, every single one of you email the board that runs the CAD and ask them to change their procedure. That's how we get the changes, but, you know, getting...
There's certain rules that they have to follow that.
But to his point, and it's a fair question, if I may, I'm trying to be a voice of reason and neutrality. I appreciate that if there's a distinction in one of the government offices from another, but she wasn't elected.
Clerk's office door stays open. There's no button on it. People walk in and out
In
there all day.
the county clerk?
County clerk.
The county clerk was elected, correct? And the county clerk being elected by the people probably feels a different pressure to work and to take those risks. She's an employee. She's 72 hours away from losing her job. Not you specifically, but the chief appraiser in Bear County has been there for 19 years. And he's running as tight a ship. What I would say, if I could offer a suggestion, is I hope somebody is here from CAD, but, you know, from the board, let's get some Zoom, because maybe that would allow this gentleman to be seen. Okay. Well, then that's a start, but, you know, let's all then write a letter saying, I want my hearings in person. She's offering the formals in person.
There's a lot of older people that we notice that they don't use the phones, they're not on computers.
Don't talk about me like that.
I don't know, or they don't know how to do this in person. They have to go in there and sit down with somebody, and they're used to doing this for every year for the past 80 years of their existence.
My life
Going in
changed.
there and having somebody help them fill out the paperwork.
Let me speak to that. Last year, I was emotionally overwhelmed when dentists weren't allowed to work for 60 days. And they managed the port of entry of all poison with social distancing, part of their normal routine, gloves and masks. And I lectured at dental school. I also lectured at the medical school. I feel the irritation more than you can imagine. I manage a building where I'm responsible for people coming in and out. I will tell you that the inconsistency in which we've dealt with this issue of social distancing is overwhelming. But I thought, oh my goodness, you know, I'm not going to be able to help as many people as possible. And 1,000 people signed up for a seminar in February. Guess what happened? Zooming and telephone conferencing made me more efficient. I'm here in person at risk, theoretically. I feel your pain, but also it creates an opportunity for her to either get more staff, get a different facility, or perhaps find a way to be open for more. Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. What?
I protested in the past, and I felt like when I was at the informal, they said either take this or leave it. If you want to go to the board, then you're playing roulette. You know, they may go higher. Is that true?
Well, you're not old enough. For those of us in the room, remember, let's make a deal.
Yes.
Remember with Monty Hall? Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes you feel like that, but in that real game show, you know, he would give you $200 and he'd say, or do you want to take what's behind door number 3? And occasionally what was behind door number 3 was a donkey. Now I know those of you that are rural say, well, that's worth more than $200. That's not the point. But if that's what somebody told you, they're telling you the truth. This is my offer. They can't speak for a panel that they don't confer with. They don't get with the panel and say, hey, listen, you know, I gave her a chance out. You know, and you said, well, I hope that you'll listen to the additional evidence I'm showing you now. So if you don't want to take it, and you felt like, well, a little coerced or pushed, then smile. Say, thank you very much.
You didn't answer her question. Her question was, they told her it could go up, yes or no?
Yes, it can. Oh, no, it can go, it can be not what was offered is what I meant to say.
But can it go up higher, like it might?
No. Mr. Sifuentes started at 320. It could only go down from there.
Okay.
It went down to 300, and the appraiser said, I'll give you 300. Or what's behind the panel? I said, go with the panel. Because my experience, and I can't speak for Wilson's one panel, but 99.9% of the time, the panel either agrees with the appraiser because they say, that's the smart one in the room, or they say, you know what, Mr. Appraiser, you're having a bad hair day, and this lady's made a really good case, and I'm going to lean her way. I don't see, so it can't go up, it can go down, and it can go down if the panel rules lower than the appraiser, and even if the panel rules lower, you can still go to arbitration.
I think a lot of people, just talking to someone this morning who said, I don't want to, my taxes are kind of okay, and I don't even want to attempt to go there because I think it could go up.
It's a personal choice. We're not dictating everybody should do it. But I can tell you, I was shocked. I only found out yesterday that only 5% of Wilson, everybody's complaining, but only 5% did anything about it last year. Now, something doesn't make sense there. Now, is it because one of the 7 appraisers was having a bad day? I don't know, Jenny. I can't speak to her managing the communication, but I can say this: those are your rights. I mean, before we go to the next one, did we learn anything tonight? Yes. I mean, I'm not feeling all right. Because the goal of tonight was to inform you and empower you. And I hope, can we say, we came away with a little more information, we're a little more empowered. She's not the enemy. Don't shoot the messenger. This nonsense has got to stop, and I don't know her. I spent a little bit of time on the phone. I just shook her hand. I know it sounds like, but I'm telling you, she's doing her job based on the risk of being fired in 72 hours. On any day of the week, that's what Mr. Mosquito would say. After 19 years, he's already picked his successor. You don't like what her appraiser said or didn't say, that's what you got a panel for. You don't like what the panel says, then let's take it, without even leaving the county, let's take it to an arbitrator. Now, if that isn't enough for for us to feel like, wow, I didn't know this, I would say that, go to the website, and I'll work with her to make it even more clear, but it's a really friendly website that says you have rights, and if you do this, you can do that. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
This lady right here, lady in the front, gentleman over here, and then this one.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Do I understand that your appraised values can't exceed 10%? Is that on property or structure?
That's the composite value on our homestead. Did I get it right?
Unless you add anything new, then that's not included in that 10%.
Right.
Because like everybody, including ours, has exceeded the 10%.
For market value, but not for tax assessed value. I'll show you. Like in the case of Mr. Sifuentes, his value of $290, which he's still arbitrating. Remember the example? They're already telling him in Bear County. You think Jenny's tough? don't live in Bear County. They're already telling him it's gonna go to 361 based on market, but his taxable value is only going up 10%, 290 to 319, because the homestead cap limits the amount by which the tax collector will then assess the bottom line property tax bill. Say 290, I got an A in algebra, so bear with me. 290 times 10%, 110% gets us to 319. That's not arbitrary, that's limited by the calculation. Now, for those of you that are happy with 10%, every 7.2 years, if your property goes up 10%, it's going to double. So you need to fight it if you don't think your property's meriting that kind of an increase. Look at where he was, 302, 307, 310, and now he's at 290 and he's going backwards. He probably should have been protesting. That property condition didn't just arise in that year. So maybe he, oops, I'm sorry. Maybe he didn't. Looking back, he probably said, wow, I could have maybe gotten the 290 down to 270. But the good news is, unlike the IRS, they can't go back and correct it any more than we can. So we're still fighting this one, but it's better than the year before when he didn't fight. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I actually protested my taxes last year and lost. I wasn't prepared, because I was new at this whole thing. I'm a new homeowner. I only paid $100,000 to have my home built, and the appraiser appraised it at $280,000. I didn't bring in that closing cost, so if y'all have closing costs, I'm much better prepared this year. I took pictures. Last year I took pictures of, because I live on a street behind a subdivision, but on my street, there's only 3 actual houses, and there's probably like 9 of us there. The rest of them are mobile homes, old mobile homes. And they told me that those were already appraised in my appraisal. They were already in there. So my question is, because they told me whatever was selling around me or the houses around me, like 10 miles, 5 miles away from me, that's what they were going based off of my home. So what's the use of taking pictures across the street or the burnt house next door to me if my house was only built for $100,000? So if I come in with proof this year and the value of my property and my home goes down, is there such a thing as overpaying on taxes on last year? Because now my house is worth $335,000 according to the appraisal.
Again, every year stands on its own, although there is, I think, some exceptions to that you could make a request. I'm not sure that you're going to get to be able to reopen a case from the prior year. Very rare exceptions. But you said it at the outset. You're more prepared to make the case that I shouldn't be compared to homes that are a few down the highway in a different environment. And if somebody from Wilson County, in a panel, a jury of your peers, doesn't agree, then you now probably, if you're talking about a significant, what's the going tax rate? 2.5%? 2.1? So it's $210 for every $10,000 of value reduced. If you're saying I think it's $50,000 off, well, that's $1,000. Do you want to arbitrate to save $1,000? I would maybe consider it. If you really believe that you can make a better argument this year to save $50,000 of value, that means you're going to save approximately $1,100 of taxes. That's the cost-benefit decision of going to arbitration. But at least you have that right. Then maybe she, through whoever she appoints, will say, you know what, we don't want to lose that arbitration. And maybe they're going, she doesn't even have enough data on how she's going to handle arbitrations because we haven't pushed the county to that point. So we don't know. She can't tell me whether 40 arbitrations are handled this year. Who's to say she hasn't settled 30 of them the way she would have settled it at the informal hearing, without it even being, the check being cashed. If you make a request for arbitration, the state says there's a cooling off period, that you get one more chance to talk off, not in front of the arbitrator, with the county. And the county says likewise, wait a minute, now I might be paying that fee. You put up the deposit, but if you win, you get everything but $50 back.
So we pay that fee.
you make a deposit, let me get to it. You make a deposit, in this case $450, because the value of your residence is under $500. And $400 is what pays for somebody like me, an arbitrator, not me, because I'm not on the registry for the comptroller. But there's 200 arbitrators. They're going to get paid $400 to hear your case, to hear his case. I apologize, sir, because I didn't follow all of what he wants, the point he's making. But if I was the arbitrator and he makes that case and I follow his logic and I'm a licensed real estate professional, or I'm an attorney, or I'm some other professional that's an arbitrator, I might understand his argument and agree with him, even though the appraiser even got the ARB panel to agree with them. Are we clear on that? That you have a right to appeal, there's the cost, and if he wins, let's say I was the more sophisticated arbitrator and the panel didn't follow your logic and you made a good argument, and he wins, that means she's got to turn to that county appraisal district and say, we're paying the arbitrator's fee. You get your $450 back less the $50 deposit. I mean, the $50 that goes to the comptroller. The comptroller receives your request. They assign it to an arbitrator. And now we have one more chance to get the ruling in our favor because of your unique circumstances.
Mike, we're going to go here, then here, and then one more question.
Okay, where's here?
The gentleman, yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. So a couple of things. One, I just want to recap your presentation here. So basically you're saying do the form, okay, submit that. Then request the evidence and then gather all of our information, and at the ARB, that's when we're going to present our case and try to...
Well, but you need to send it in advance, 3 days, so that she can, get it in a format that the panel can see it.
Prior to the ARB?
Prior to the hearing.
Okay.
And also, when you send in your protest form, that holds your spot, that gets you your hearing. So after May 15th, when the phones slow down and the appraisers have a chance to catch up with the online protests, the ones that were mailed in, they're going to start calling people back and say, okay, give me your evidence, let's look at it together, let's talk about it. They're going to try and hold an informal hearing with you either online or over the phone or by email with both evidence in hand.
And the informal hearing is not the ARB process, is that correct?
That's correct.
This is like an intermediate thing, kind of side view.
Yes, it's off the record, it's not recorded, it's not in front of a panel.
Gotcha.
It's as friendly as that gentleman in the blue talking to you, and he's now giving you his evidence, and you've given him yours. But if I may continue, if after talking to him, you realize, wow, I just like the lady, right? You make a better case because I need to bring more. You may be able to get this resolved by sending more information if he has the time in his schedule to beat you to the formal hearing.
Okay. And then the timeline from the ARB, the time frame from when we receive the evidence packet. We request the evidence packet from you via the form. How long does it take for us to get that evidence packet so that we can prepare our case to present at the ARB?
Correct me if I'm wrong. They have to, once they get it, they have to get it at least 2 weeks before the hearing?
Correct. They'll receive their evidence 10 days prior to the hearing.
To the hearing, but
If not sooner.
But not for formal meeting, the informal hearing.
For the formal hearing, you'll get the evidence
Yeah,
10 days
formal
prior.
hearing.
But if we reach out to you to do an informal, we're going to send you the evidence. As quick as we can get through them, we're sending them out.
Let me reiterate, because I hear where he's going. 10 days before the formal hearing, the ARB panel is all she's required to do by law. I appreciate it. I want more from my elected officials, from the president to the governor, and I've told you about my past. But the fact that she's even offering informal hearings, if we were in Travis County, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
So this is where we ended up last year, and it wasn't because we were just, oh, okay, that's it. We were ignorant, I guess, to the process. So we thought once we got that quote-unquote informal hearing, we were waiting for our date. We never received anything by certified mail. So then they came out and said, well, this is your appraised value because you didn't show up for your phone call. It's like, they never notified us when the phone call was. So that's where we left it. We didn't know there was other stages to this.
Right, and clearly there was just a miscommunication
Sure.
because they thought they had communicated a date for the hearing, and they thought you were a no-show.
Right, and that's kind of where we left it, because we had no idea of this process. The gentleman that was sitting here that asked the question, I think he left earlier, he talked about protesting, which we protested last year, right? And since from 2013 to 2020, my land value was at $50,000. Okay, we protested last year, it jumped up to $115,000.
Exactly.
So now, okay, did you know me? So now, is that retaliation for speaking up, or is that, do I provide that in my evidence packet? Because last year, we sent them closing documents on the house that we purchased, and it didn't seem to help.
Let me say this, we don't know each other, and I act like she and I go back years. I just talked to her on the phone for a little bit yesterday. But only God knows my intent.
Sure.
I can't call anybody in this room a liar unless you tell me what your intention was to deceive me. Now, you might be incompetent, and as a result, you're inconsistent. Not you, but any of us. So when that word was thrown out, I'm like, retaliation? I don't think they have the time and the energy to pick you out of the... You may feel that way, and you're entitled to feel however it is you feel. I'm not going to tell you not to feel. I'm going to ask you to rethink so that you can change your emotions in how you want to address the perception that they're retaliating against you. As far as I'm concerned, everybody in Wilson County is being abused. Stop Tax Abuse was my slogan when I ran for tax collector. So I'm on your side that we need to control the values. Unfortunately, the government isn't putting enough money in making it more specific, and as a consequence, in administering this process, it is coming across as very abusive. But is it intentional? I can't speak to that.
So when I meant retaliation, I meant more so along the lines of, when I say a target on my back. I don't think she's personally saying this guy protested, we're going to go after him. I think there may be some type of algorithm or something for residences that actually protest. Now they get dropped into another bucket over here because for 7.5 years we had no increase. And then boom, all of a sudden now I'm in another category.
That I'll agree with. Now thank you first of all for giving her a little bit of respect for humanity. But I will agree that algorithm, because now we're talking math and facts, could be inconsistent and it's deserving of being challenged.
And then again, my question is can I use that as part, and the reason why I said it, can I use that as part in saying, hey, there's something doesn't add up here because there was no movement, and I set up my protest, because now I'm planning on doing this every single year.
Yes,
and if I have to, we'll go to the ARB every single year.
And you may go to arbitration now, because you have an appeals process. Because you may feel like the ARB, because there's only one of them in the county, is again just biased towards the appraiser. That's a reasonable emotion that I have in Bexar County. Is sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it was wealth discrimination or ethnic discrimination, or they're just tired, or they didn't like the fact that you wore a mask and you look like a bank robber this year. And I love you. That's why I brought up the price. Okay, so but what I'm saying is yes, you're going to protest it, and you're going to suggest that we're going to argue the facts. I don't mind the word argument. We make an argument. This is your argument. This algorithm makes no sense. I don't know where you get your numbers. Make your case based on the facts, and I think you're going to be more successful in front of an arbitrator if, in fact, the panel, who knows what mood the panel is going to be in this year. That everybody on that panel, and I'll bet everybody on this front row, is paying property taxes. Because even if you're rent, your landlord's paying property taxes. So I'm not looking for you all to say but we're all got the same problem.
One last question for her. So during our quote-unquote informal negotiation talks, if we set the closing documents for the home that we purchased, why would that not be enough evidence to, like I feel like that's more than a reasonable amount of evidence if there's a closing document for that property saying, hey, this property sold for X amount of dollars, why are you valuing it?
When did it close? But let me use your example. So it closed in June.
That end of February, March 1st. Let's say March 1st.
Okay, it closed March 1st of that year, and they were valuing it at the end of the year, correct?
Last year.
Right. So March 1st to the end of the year, did it go up in value? Did it get burned down? Did it get destroyed? Did it get damaged by hail? You see, January 1st is the effective date. Even though you bought it March 1st, what if it went the other way? What if it burned down? You'd definitely show up with a picture of a vacant lot. You wouldn't show up with the settlement statement when you bought it as a finished product. Agreed? The effective date is January 1st.
All right, Mike, we've got this gentleman.
Thank you. And I'll stay around. We can talk some more.
We've got this gentleman that we're closing out the questions.
Thank you.
With this lady right here.
Thank you.
This gentleman.
And then we'll stay, but on an individual basis. Yes, sir.
We live in Roberta and we own vacant land next to our home. We replanted last fall into one lot, and we got our form from the appraisal office, and they still list them as separate lots. I need to know who I need to contact to get that corrected. We went to the clerk's office and took care of
I can give
everything.
you my card, and you can email that directly to me, or put a copy in our Dropbox, so I would be the one that would combine, there's two separate tax accounts now, and you had it platted, and you would merge those tax accounts together, we would need a copy of that document.
And it'll help because you may be comparing two lots by this size with lots of that size. Now you have one larger lot. Did you consolidate or you bifurcated?
No, we put them together.
You put them together. So now you've got a bigger lot. So therefore, they need to be able to do their best to find bigger lots to compare it to. Agreed? Yeah. So get her the facts so she can then maybe help you make a better argument that a bigger lot is not twice the value of the smaller lots.
So we're not arguing about that, I just want the records to be corrected.
But I want you, but I appreciate you're being too amiable. I want you to, so the rest of the people that will benefit from that. Okay? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
What affects the homestead cap in regards to increasing and decreasing from year to year?
What effect is the exemption? Is that what
Yeah,
you're?
what affects that homestead cap from increasing and decreasing? Because I'm noticing this particular year on the appraisal, it decreased for our homestead cap from what it was last year, and yet I see my neighbors increased majorly.
Are you talking about the value, or are you talking about?
No, the homestead cap.
The homestead cap.
When you look at their homestead cap, it has an increase rate and decrease rate from your.
No, now maybe what we're,
Yeah, the cap loss, yeah, the homestead cap loss.
this is not, is just the difference between the cap of increasing the prior year's assessed.
Only just that balance carried over to that.
I'm sorry.
Yes. That's just that balance carried over to that. Whatever their increase that they're indicating is.
Here or here? This went up only by 10%. This, compared to this market value, that is just a differential. That's just a simple math. 361 plus 319 is 42.
That cap is there to keep the assessed value in that 10% range if that's what it's, right?
Correct.
Correct, 42,000 is excluded from assessment
Because it's in that 10%, right?
I'm not sure if we lost your attention.
Okay.
I guess we answered the question.
So, really quick, that was the last question, but you're free
Stay
to
around.
come up and ask him individual questions if you'd like. But I just wanted to say thank you all for coming and taking time, and thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Michael, for speaking.